been a long 4 or 5 months. Been very stressful. I feel very burned out, but it's finally done. Almost. We'll get to the carport here in a minute. But the building fits amazing. I'll explain how that happened. But all in all, I'm ready to start moving everything in here. But I can't. I have to hold off just a little bit, and we'll get into that. First and foremost, let's get to why there's no carport. So here's from the beginning. Here's the gist of it. I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible. So 5 things needed to happen for this to become a reality. Demo of the old building, removal, dirt work, concrete, and then the new building. Well, the new building, let's put that over here. These 4 things, we reached a conclusion where there was no more guesswork involved. During this process, we had everything we needed as far as numbers, and there was no more guesswork to the time frame and the cost to do all those 4 things. So we went ahead and moved ahead with the project. Now, as far as the building itself, we didn't exactly have a dollar amount set yet. Originally, if you remember, the original dimensions were going to be 24 by 40, half of which were going to be the carport section. That was originally going to be built from scratch on site. We were going to use either red iron or just heavier duty square tubing with thicker walls and everything, and then your regular paneling and all that fun stuff. The shop section would look relatively the same, but then we'd have that attached carport, if you remember from some of my previous pictures. So the building itself, we didn't have that locked down, but like I said, we moved forward with the project anyway. So I was left with a raised slab, a shallow slab, and no plans for a building, which was fine because, like I said, we had plans for the building. We just didn't have the numbers worked out. Well, the costs wound up exceeding, to have the building built from scratch from raw materials, the cost of that wound up exceeding even what my contractor originally thought. The building would have taken up the entire budget just for the building. So we had to backpedal a little bit as far as that goes. So what happened was, since red iron was out, the square tubing was out, we decided to go with one of my original ideas, and that was to use a tubular type building from one of these carport companies that builds all sorts of different things. So now that we're dealing with a company that deals with check boxes and drop-down menus, and somebody that they build these, they cut, measure, and build these off-site, and then they assemble them here. So dealing now with a company that prefabs, you have to make that work with your existing slabs. So I have partial retaining wall, a low slab, a high slab with a drip edge. You know, we had the luxury of not having to be super accurate with the measurements because everything was going to be built here. So we weren't going to waste an inch of concrete. So the original slab from the retaining wall outwards 24 and 6 inches, which at the time, for a 24-foot building, for me, that gave us plenty of room. This new slab wound up being exactly 300 inches and and 1.5 with like the drip edge around it, but the top footprint of the slab itself was exactly 300 inches. And then the width was 20 feet, however many inches that is. So now you're dealing with 2 opposites. Now you have this slab situation that was originally designed for a different style of building versus now we have to make a prefab structure work with what we've already got. Not that big of a deal. But the biggest problem came when they came out to measure and they saw what I wanted to build. And it wasn't a big deal to have one part of the slab higher than the other because that's where we were going to have the separate building anyway. They were going to, obviously, it was all going to be connected with one roof line. The carport section would just be on the framework would start lower and then they would just scissor everything up and they would just make these, they would cut these 1.5 inches taller. for the outside on the carport, so it was not an issue at all. But what wound up happening was, it wasn't the drop in the slab that was an issue, it was the distance of the depth. And what I mean by that is, that slab, like I said earlier, that our existing slab was 24 6, this was exactly 25. So for the front of the building on the drip edge to line up with the slab, the building, the shop, the whole building and the carport section, the whole depth would now have to be 24 6 inches for it to fit and look properly. Well, because it's a prefab company, they couldn't do this 6 inches. They could only do a 25 or 24. The other option was this. Okay, well, build a 24 depth by 40 width. That was the original plan, right? Like, it's not a problem to do the 2 different height slabs, so that's accounted for. So why didn't I just do a 24 by 40? That was the original plan with the carport on there. 2 things. The first one was the carport section, the opening that would be facing outwards that way. They could only do a 16-foot span. That's something I could have modified down the road. I would have just hired a professional, got some 2x6 square tube with a decent thickness and built a better header and had them come in and widen that opening the best they could. So that was already something I was having to pay for twice, and paying up front for something I didn't necessarily want. So that was kind of like but the bigger problem was, if you remember, we have this retaining wall. The original plan was I was going to extend it, and the building was going to butt up against the retaining wall, and then they would just cut they would have just put the siding on, starting at the top of the retaining wall on this side. But with it being 24 feet, we'd have that space, we'd have about 6, 7 inches on this side, but that would have left 6 inches or so approximately on the front of the building. And then you would have this 6-inch slab on the whole front of the building with the drip edge, not doing anything, just floating out in the open, and that would have bothered me forever. Because one, the drip edge wouldn't be doing its job. You would then have your framework directly on level on the concrete. There wouldn't be a drop off for the siding to go down. The siding would end right here. So when you have the driving rain or even rain at an angle, water would collect and it could work its way out under the building and get into the shop. Which, again, we went through all this work to make it so it wouldn't do that, but like I said, that was the second thing I didn't want to have happen. So at that point, we decided on, let's scratch the carport for now. That's going to come later, and then we'll do just the shop. And like I said, we got very lucky because it's exactly 300 inches and it's 25 feet by 20 feet, and like I've mentioned, the building fits perfectly. The siding comes down around the drip edge all the way around. They didn't have to mess with anything. They didn't have to modify anything. It could not have fit any better. It really couldn't have. So I'm very happy about that. And like I said, the carport section is going to come later on, possibly the end of the year. But at least now the money I had set aside for that section, the last 1/3 of the cost of the building, I can now use that to deck out the shop with cool stuff. So, as you've already seen from the intro, I've got a trailer with a bunch of wood on it. So, I've already got a project going on in here you will likely see on the next video. So, I'm talking about the drip edge. As you can see, the siding is going down to what looks like the slab. But as you can see, it's not. The slab's actually about 1.5 inches higher. And that's where the channel rests on. So that way, of course, when the water's running down the siding, it's significantly lower than the surface that the channel is resting on. So pretty self-explanatory. It took a minute for me to understand what the guys were talking about during the concrete laying process, and it's like that way around the entire building. I do have some dirt work to do on the back side now because I decided not to do that retaining wall. I've got to dig out and do a rock drain and everything, but that's something that you'll probably see later, if ever. I just have to level some dirt out so the water, when it's running down this way, doesn't go up above the dirt edge. But it's not that high. It looks a little high, but it's not that bad. So where does that leave us moving forward from here? So these first 5 things, demo, removal, dirt work, concrete, new building, that's done. It's all here. Okay, aside from the carport section, that can be absolute last. Now we're over on this hand. Electrical, insulation, lighting. There's a lot going on. Obviously, moving stuff in here, getting a footprint of the shop. So those first 3 things can all happen simultaneously. As far as the receptacle placement and the outlets and things, I will do that after I start moving things in here. But of course, I want to do installation first. I'm going to use, well, the installation isn't going to be so much for my comfort. It's going to be for sound deadening. As you can probably tell, it's very echoey in here. Even recording this, I don't know how well it's going to come out. But I'm trying to get 5-foot wide rolls of insulation, or really just kind of maybe like a double bubble sound barrier, something that is cost effective. I can just put, I can start at the top and let it drop and cut down and secure it to the panels without any issues. So it really couldn't be an easier building to insulate like that. The roof, I'll probably put up a little video here. In between the purlins, it's got a channel, and it looks to be like a 1/2-inch channel. So I'll be able to get foam board and kind of bend it a little and slip it in all across the roof with the metallic backer facing upwards. So that will, as a byproduct of sound deadening the building, it will be somewhat insulated. So the electrical, I'm in the middle of rewiring my entire house right now. And I don't mean as far as pulling all the wires out from the walls and the outlets, but everything in the attic. The house is old. It was built in '55. It's all 2-wire, so it just has 2 hots and a neutral coming in. All the grounds on the modern stuff's bonded to the neutrals, and it's not supposed to be that. I'm not going to get into all of that. I've already got a new main breaker panel in the house. I've got a new sub panel in the garage. I still have to, of course, wire up the shop, but I'm in the middle of a lot of household electrical right now. And I'm not going to get into that. I have some footage back from last year when I was going to make a video on it and decided not to. But you can see me crawling around over the house and doing all this fun stuff. And it's pretty much a wire nightmare. I may do a little walk around video when it's all done, but maybe not. Of course, the lighting, I have an idea, but I haven't exactly made up my mind yet, so that will be just something we'll see when it happens. I know some of you might be thinking, oh man, well now that you didn't do the carport, you could have had a bigger shop. Well, yes and no. Don't forget, the concrete was already in place with a certain size shop in mind by the time we came to this realization. So that was never really an option. The money I saved by not making this simply 2-foot wider, I now have for the electrical insulation, building materials, all this other stuff. We can get into that on the next video, which you will see my project I have planned for inside here. But all in all, guys, through this whole process, I'm very burned out mentally. But now that I'm finally in here, I'm wanting to put a big TV in over there. I'm wanting to do tile work, and we'll see what happens down the road. But I want to buy a TIG welder, things like that. But like I said, I've got to take it one step at a time, unfortunately. Got the first modification. Don't forget, I have to keep reminding myself as well, this is not the whole shop. Don't forget, I still have a 24 by 20 slab right next to us. I'll be working on stuff. That door sill I need to remove, not a problem. I'm not going to get into that. That was an oversight. That's not that big of a deal. But guys, there's not much more to say. There's not much more to see at the moment. It's 4 walls, a roof, and some floor. I'm not going to stand here and talk about it any longer. Now I've got to get back to work. So guys, this is a Monday. I'm re-recording this. It is actually Memorial Day. I plan on having this video up a little sooner, but things happen. So guys, take the time today to reflect on the sacrifices that have been made over the years to get this country to where it is today. And of course, better lives for the people all over the world. No matter your background, your experience. I know for some of you, this is just any ordinary day because Memorial Day for you is every day. So I just hope everybody has a chance to relax, enjoy the day off if they have it. Spend time with your family, friends. But with that, I'll see you on the next one.